October 7th, 2023, a day that changed the course of Israeli history and the lives of 2.4 million Gazans. A day that was about to change West Asia and the world forever. On that day, Hamas launched a massive and coordinated attack on Israel by land, sea and air. Rockets fired from Gaza filled the sky. As the rockets fell, hundreds of Hamas members broke through the fortified border. They used bulldozers, explosives and motorcycles. Others crossed by boats and some even flew in using paragliders. The invasion was swift. Villages, army posts and homes were attacked. A music festival in the desert turned into a massacre. Almost 1,200 people were killed, including civilians and foreign nationals. 251 were taken into Gaza as hostages. For Israel, it was the deadliest day since the Holocaust.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה. לא במבצע, לא בסבבים, במלחמה.
The next day, Israel declared war. For the first time since 1973, the country mobilized hundreds of thousands of reservists. Airstrikes began almost immediately, targeting what Israel said were Hamas bases and tunnels. Gaza was placed under a complete siege, with food, fuel, water and electricity cut off. 2 years later, the war has changed the landscape of the Gaza Strip. 2 years back, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu set out two main objectives for the war in Gaza: to recover all hostages taken from Israel and to destroy Hamas. 2 years on, the big question remains: have any of these motives been fulfilled? On the show today, as the Israel-Hamas war completes 2 years, we reflect back on the biggest turning points of this war. What is the history of the Israel-Palestine conflict? How did the Israel-Hamas war go beyond their borders and become a multi-front war? Where are the Israeli hostages and Palestinian prisoners? Where has Palestine reached? How much has it lost? And will this age-old conflict end with this war? Two years of relentless war have turned the Gaza Strip into a landscape of ruin and loss. The government media office in Gaza says more than 2.4 million people, mostly civilians, have been victims of the war. Officials estimate around 90% of Gaza's infrastructure has been damaged, with more than 200,000 tons of explosives reportedly dropped since the fighting began. The human cost is staggering. According to Gaza officials, more than 76,600 people have been killed or are reported missing in Gaza. Of these, over 67,000 bodies have been recovered from the rubble. Around 9,500 people remain missing, either buried beneath collapsed buildings or their fates still unknown.
My son Amir was killed yesterday. Due to the unfair war on Gaza and the lack of resources in Gaza, neither us nor the civil defense managed to retrieve his body. We continued searching with primitive tools to retrieve my son Amir.
The rocket fell. They were hit. All of them flew over there. My in-laws, my cousin, were visiting us. My mother was killed. My two nieces are between life and death.
Let's look at the numbers released by Gaza officials. More than 20,000 children and 12,000 women have been killed. Among them are over 1,000 infants under the age of 1. and hundreds of babies who were born and died during the war.
I have a daughter who has cancer. She is 2 years old. And I have lost 3. My twin son and daughter died 3 days ago. And I lost a son 2 years ago at the beginning of the war. I'm not asking for anything. I lost 3. I swear to God it's not about losing them. God brought them and then God took them. I am indeed sad about them, but may they rest in peace. We are just asking for a shelter. I don't want to lose the daughter I still have.
The report also records 1,670 medical workers, 140 civil defense members, and 254 journalists killed while performing their duties. Hospitals across Gaza have been badly affected. At least 38 hospitals and 96 primary healthcare centers are said to be destroyed or damaged, along with nearly 200 ambulances. Just weeks ago, on the 24th of September, a vital hospital belonging to a Palestinian medical charity in eastern Gaza Strip was destroyed in what was reportedly an Israeli strike. The largest medical complex in the Strip, located in Gaza City, was placed under siege by Israel in mid-November 2023. Israel then claimed to have contained a Hamas command and control center beneath it. On the 22nd of November, Israel published a video showing multiple tunnels beneath the hospital. Over the years, this is one of the ways Hamas operated and thrived. It built a tunnel city stretching beneath Gaza for hundreds of kilometers, up to 80 meters deep in parts. A hostage who was held in the network before being freed by Hamas described it as a spider's web. The Israeli military said then that many of the Hamas's tunnels, command centers and rocket launchers lie adjacent to schools, hospitals and humanitarian institutions in northern Gaza, including the region's largest hospital, Al-Shifa, in Gaza City. The education sector too has been severely hit. As per Gaza officials, 95% of schools have been damaged and over 13,000 students and 830 teachers are reported dead. The damage to infrastructure is beyond repair. 268,000 homes have been completely destroyed, 148,000 severely damaged, and over 288,000 families left homeless. According to the United Nations, parts of Gaza have been pushed into man-made famine. An analysis released by the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification (IPC) in August this year stated that more than 500,000 people in Gaza are trapped in famine, marked by widespread starvation, destitution, and preventable deaths. The IPC forecast that by the end of September 2025, nearly a third of Gaza's total population would be in the grip of famine conditions. Although it has not yet provided an update on that forecast. Figures released by Gaza officials show the region's economy and environment have taken a big hit. Today, Gaza is a place of rubble and grief, where entire neighborhoods have vanished and families mourn without graves. Over 2 years, Israel has witnessed rocket strikes and infiltration attacks that have damaged homes, infrastructure, and farmland, particularly in southern Israel near the Gaza border. But this devastation in Israel does not come only from its war with Hamas. From Iran's mass drone attack in 2024 to the Israel-Iran war this year to Hezbollah's rocket attack, Israel tackled onslaughts from various fronts. After its war with Iran in June 2025, Israel's tax authority reported that it is handling around 45,000 claims for direct damage, including about 35,000 claims for damage to structures. The human cost has been severe. The October 7, 2023 attack by Hamas killed over 1,200 people. Most of them civilians, making it one of the deadliest days in Israel's history. At least 913 IDF soldiers have also lost their lives. The conflict between Israel and Palestine is one of the world's longest and most violent disputes. Its roots go back more than a century. There have been wars between Israel and Arab states, uprisings against Israeli rule, and heavy reprisals. At the core are issues of land, borders, security, and rights.
The resolution adopted by the General Assembly of the United Nations.
After World War I, Britain took control of Palestine from the Ottoman Empire. An Arab majority and Jewish minority lived there. In 1917, the Balfour Declaration promised a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. This deepened tensions with Palestinian Arabs who had lived there for centuries and strongly opposed the move. Jewish immigration rose between the 1920s and 1940s, fueled by persecution in Europe and the Holocaust. By 1947, Jews made up about 30% of the population. That year, the United Nations voted to divide Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states, with Jerusalem under international control. Arab nations rejected the plan, saying it unfairly favored Jews. On May 14, 1948, hours before Britain withdrew, Jewish leaders declared the independent state of Israel. The UN recognized it the following year. The consequences of this history were felt in coming decades and are still being felt today, including in the latest war between Israel and Hamas. The Israel-Hamas war has fundamentally altered the political landscape of West Asia, changing regional alliances, straining diplomatic relations, and triggering a new wave of strategic realignments. The war intensified divisions within West Asia. Nations such as Iran and Lebanon expressed strong support for Palestine, while others, including Egypt and Jordan, advocated a peaceful resolution. The Israel-Hamas war strained the fragile post-Abraham Accords balance, challenging the normalization efforts between Israel and Arab states. Israeli operations in Gaza have decimated the Hamas leadership in the past 2 years. Key figures such as Yahya Sinwar, the architect and leader of the October 7 attacks, and Mohammad Deif, commander of Hamas's military wing, were killed in targeted strikes. Despite these losses, Hamas has managed to maintain its organizational structure, with new leaders emerging to fill the power vacuum. Hamas is currently led by a 5-member council, with Khalil al-Hayya believed to be the most influential. Izz al-Din al-Haddad became the most senior Hamas military leader in the Gaza Strip after Mohammad Sinwar's death. The war also prompted a re-evaluation of US influence in the region. The Israeli airstrike on Hamas leaders in Doha in September 2025, which Qatar condemned as a violation of its sovereignty, highlighted concerns among Gulf Cooperation Council members about the reliability of the United States as a security partner. On the other hand, there have been significant changes in Israel's military and political leadership. In March 2025, Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir succeeded Aviv Kochavi as Chief of Staff of the Israeli Defense Forces. Zamir's appointment came amid internal debate over military strategies and leadership approaches. In November 2024, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu sacked the then Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, citing a crisis of trust. Gallant is succeeded by Israel Katz, the country's former foreign minister. The Israel-Hamas war escalated into a multi-front conflict, engaging several regional actors and transforming the geopolitical landscape of West Asia. Let's look at some key moments. After decades of avoiding direct confrontation and choosing to be in a shadow war, in June 2025, Israel and Iran engaged in a 12-day direct military confrontation. Iran and Israel began openly trading strikes in 2024. Remember the Iranian drone strike on Israel, codenamed Operation True Promise? It was triggered by a fatal Israeli strike on the Iranian consulate in Damascus, in Syria. But their conflict entered a much wider and more intense phase a year later in June 2025, after Israel, along with the US military, attacked Iranian nuclear, military and energy sites. Precision strikes carried out by Israel to target several scientists and top commanders of Iran, including Major General Hossein Salami, Commander-in-Chief of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, were a part of this war. In retaliation, Iran unleashed barrages of ballistic missiles. The conflict ended with a fragile ceasefire brokered by the United States, but no formal agreement was reached, leaving the risk of renewed tensions high. The war also exposed Iran's axis of resistance, a network of proxies and allies formed to counter US and Israeli influence. Iranian-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon, the most powerful and well-funded member of the Axis, opened a second front against Israel following the initial Hamas attack on the 7th of October 2023. This led to a full-scale war between Israel and Lebanon, where Hezbollah suffered catastrophic losses, including the deaths of its high command, such as Hassan Nasrallah. During Nasrallah's decades in charge, Hezbollah grew into a regional force that projected Tehran's influence across West Asia. There can be no forgetting the pager and walkie-talkie attacks. Israel stepped up its attacks on Hezbollah with an attack on the group's communication devices, which according to Israeli and US officials killed or maimed as many as 3,000 Hezbollah officers and members. In December 2024, Syria's Bashar al-Assad regime, a former member of the Axis, fell. Assad's ouster was not a direct consequence of the October 7th attacks. The reduction in support from key allies, including Russia being occupied with its war in Ukraine, and Hezbollah's engagement with Israel, are believed to have contributed to the weakening of the Assad regime. These visuals of a cargo ship being hijacked was another key moment in West Asia. Yemen's Houthis began attacking Israeli and international shipping in the Red Sea in response to Israel's actions in Gaza. Their attacks caused major disruptions to one of the world's busiest shipping routes. In response, the US and its allies launched airstrikes against Houthi targets. Over the course of the war, several hostage exchange and ceasefire deals have been brokered between Israel and Hamas. Back in November 2023, when the war was in its 7th week, there was a pause, a temporary ceasefire agreement to facilitate the release of dozens of people in captivity from both sides. Under this deal, Israel released 150 Palestinian prisoners and Hamas released some 50 hostages. In January 2025, a second exchange took place under a ceasefire agreement. Hamas released 33 hostages, including women, children and elderly. Israel freed over 1,000 Palestinian prisoners. This agreement also allowed for the return of displaced Palestinians to their homes and the delivery of humanitarian aid to Gaza. On February 8, 2025, the fifth exchange under a ceasefire agreement occurred. Hamas released 3 Israeli hostages and Israel freed 183 Palestinian prisoners. This exchange was part of a 42-day ceasefire agreement that included a total of 33 hostages being released in exchange for approximately 1,900 Palestinian prisoners. Not all hostages that were released were part of the ceasefire deal. On the night of the 12th of February 2024, the Israeli Special Forces rescued 2 hostages after a raid in Rafah city. Post their rescue from captivity, they were brought to a hospital via helicopter on the outskirts of Tel Aviv. And then there was this striking image from the war zone that left the world stunned. In August 2025, videos were released of emaciated Israeli hostages filmed by their captors in Gaza, showing the horrendous conditions they faced. Israel says 48 hostages are still in Gaza after 730 days in Hamas captivity. Can they be released under the new potential deal? Protests have been a constant presence since the war began in October 2023, both within Israel and around the world. Local demonstrations in Israel focus on demanding release of the hostages, a ceasefire, and transparency from government leaders. At the same time, massive anti-war protests have erupted in multiple countries. On October 5, 2025, about 250,000 people marched in Amsterdam, urging their government to take a firmer stance supporting Gaza. From a vehicle reportedly driving through a pro-Palestinian rally in Minneapolis, to an angry crowd chanting anti-Semitic slogans storming the airport in Russia's Dagestan region, visuals like these have rocked the world in the past 2 years. Universities worldwide also turned into centers of protest since the Israel-Hamas war began. Students backing Palestine have staged sit-ins and called for divestment from Israel, while pro-Israel groups have held counter-demonstrations defending Israel's right to self-defense. In September 2025, several countries formally recognized a Palestinian state. This includes Australia, Britain, France, and Canada. The State of Palestine is recognized as a sovereign nation by 157 of the 193 UN member states. On the 29th of September, US President Donald Trump announced a new Gaza peace plan. This plan calls for a ceasefire, the return of hostages, disarmament of Hamas, and an international administration to oversee reconstruction in Gaza. Israel has accepted the proposal. Hamas has agreed to parts of it. Two years into the Israel-Hamas war, both sides have suffered heavy losses. Gaza has undergone widespread destruction, while communities in Israel still bear the scars of the October 7th attacks. Diplomatic efforts and ceasefire proposals continue, but trust and stability remain hard to build. The question now is, can a lasting peace ever be achieved, or will the region remain locked in uncertainty?